Hi, I'm Antoinette Crosby, and welcome to Artico, Art in Your Community. And speaking of community, we are doing our part to social distance because of COVID-19. So that's why I'm coming to you from my home. I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy all the great stories and talented people we have in store for you. Up next on Artico. We see it as a popular tourist destination, but did you know that Alexandria's scenic waterfront was one of the largest slave trading ports in the country? This shameful history is the inspiration for a new public art project. It's called Wrought Knit Labor's Legacies. This exhibit is part of Old Town Alexandria's Site C Public Arts series. We spoke with the creator of this captivating installation to find out more.
The name of the art installation is Wrought Knits Labor's Legacies, and I felt it pretty much summarized both the sculptural work as well as the ground plane. Wrought is sort of rending and forming things through, sort of resistance. Knits is simultaneously referencing the ground plane, which looks at quilted, the African-American quilting tradition, but also knit is to mend, knit bones together. Labor, of course, is both labor of work and the enslaved. And then legacies is that both the story of the enslaved and the freed black community, as well as the sort of history of Alexandria is all one legacy. They're not separate. The silhouettes are facing the water, both for a formal reason. It just opens out into the expansive water, but also references resistance and resilience, as well as kind of freedom. Each of the silhouettes feature a different prominent industry throughout the history of Alexandria, and also the sort of involvement with the enslaved and freed black communities. And so for the railroad, for instance, was a kind of very crucial and important element during the Civil War for supplying troops behind enemy lines. A lot of freed slaves worked on the railroad. The fishing and ship figured heavily as well within the African-American black community. And so, it just relates to these sort of synchronous histories. I wanted to have sort of two parts installation between the sculptures and then the ground plane, so that they're situated within the quilt, almost like blocks, the various quilt blocks. And within that tradition, a lot of times the quilt blocks told a particular story or was coded in a particular way to reference either history or some other narrative. The quilted block pattern also features a series of stencils that refer both to Alexandria's history as well as its black community. The materials used to create these silhouettes are 3/4 inch aluminum water jet cuts, and the bases are 1/8 inch aluminum with around them and an aluminum frame, and they're powder coated with three different three different colors. Well, I was inspired to create this art installation through a series of both visits to the sites as well as several meetings with individuals from Alexandria's historic community, as well as visiting the Franklin and Armfield house and learning more about the fact that this was pretty much the major site of domestic slave trade within the country. I'm hoping that the public first simply enjoys the sculptures. Whatever I do, whether there's a particular narrative behind it, I like to create artwork that I find pleasing to the eye, formally, aesthetically. And then hopefully they, learn more or kind of, learn a little bit more about, Alexandria's history.
The Spanish Ballroom at Glen Echo Park is a great place to swing by. It's a beautifully restored 1933 Art Deco building and is listed on the Historic National Register. So if you like to Lindy Hop, shag, or Charleston, there's arguably no better place to do it.
Glen Echo started hosting swing dances at the very beginning of the big band era, and all of the greats played here, dances with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra and the Glenn Miller Orchestra. The Glen Echo Ballroom, the structure as we see it now, dates back to 1933. Originally, the ballroom was treated like another ride at the amusement park. So people would pay a dime, and they would come in and they would dance, and then they would clear the floor, and if you wanted to dance again, you would pay another dime. As far as I know, it has hosted social dances since its very beginning, since it was built. Swing dancing is any dance that is danced to swing music, which sounds kind of silly, but as we see it, swing is the music. It's the umbrella term for a style of music. And there is a large family of dances that can be danced to swing dancing, which include Charleston, Lindy Hop, Jitterbug, hand dance, Carolina Shag, many, many, many different dances that fit into that category. My partner Tom likes to say that swing is to dancing as jazz is to music. You start with your basic structure, and then you improvise and you interpret. And it's one of the things about it that's so nice is that it's very, very personalized.
There's 3 basic rhythm patterns, 6 count, 8 count in Charleston, and all the swing dances evolved from the Charleston of the 1920s. And by the time the 1920s comes around, it's a very upright, kind of a great Gatsby-ish era Charleston, and from there it evolves into a more running and kicking style as the music changed. The Charleston was very popular in the 1920s. It was the flapper era, and of course the Depression, but 1927 is really the year that it takes off. In Harlem, during the Harlem Renaissance, a guy named Shorty George Snowden was the best dancer in Harlem with his partner Big B, and Shorty George was 5'2", Big B was 6'2". And they were at the Savoy Ballroom, which was an amazing ballroom in Harlem. It was considered the home of Happy Feet. And everybody would go there and dance, and Shorty George was the best dancer. And as this music was changing, his style of Charleston changed. And everybody would look at Shorty George and say, "Shorty George, what is that cool thing you're doing?" And everybody wanted to do this dance called the Lindy Hop. Later on, other people started to emulate his style and started to vary his style. Early 1930s, a young man by the name of Frankie Manning, who's pretty well known in the swing dance world, was in a competition with Shorty George and did the very first aerial, so-called an air step. And he flipped his partner over his back, and everybody went crazy. That took the dance off in another direction, made it much more theatrical, and it just spread like wildfire. Everybody wanted to do it, not just the black kids in Harlem, but also the white kids who saw this.
As World War II came along, as GIs went overseas, they took the dance with them and spread it all over the world.
You can go to, Singapore and we call it Swingapore. You can go to Germany right now and rock that swing, they call it. Seoul, South Korea has like 23 clubs that do nothing but swing dancing. So it's all over the world. First-time dancers who come to Glen Echo, we have a 1-hour beginner lesson. That 1-hour beginner lesson starts with presuming no prior knowledge. We start with the basic rhythm. We go through a few moves, and if you don't have a partner, that's not a problem. We rotate partners.
So people who are absolute novices and have never stepped on the dance floor before all learn enough to have a fun evening dancing.
You get to meet all these new people. In the days before the internet, this is how people would meet, and we've had over 400 couples get married out of our dance classes. Usually get about 300 or 400 people. When we have a name band that comes in, we've had Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and Cherry Poppin' Daddies, we get to capacity. The room holds 800. I've been coming here for almost 40 years now. This is like stepping back in time. And there's no other place like this. And ballrooms are not built like this. There's no great floors built like this anymore. People are surprised that there's no heat or air conditioning in the room, but it's authentic.
One of the really wonderful things about coming to a swing dance at the Spanish Ballroom is you're going to see people of all ages, of all walks of life, of all levels of experience. And nicely, it's one of the activities in life where you actually are kind of valued for your age. because elder dancers tend to have a little bit more experience and are in demand because they know how to dance, they know how to do the dance. We'll see families come with their 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. It's a great place for high school students because it's one of the few places that's not based on drinking and smoking and things like that. It's not a bar or a pickup bar or anything like that. So it's a very safe, very friendly place where people of all ages can come and feel comfortable.
Now from swing dancing to music that swings, the Mid-Atlantic Jazz Festival showcases established and emerging jazz artists. It follows the grand tradition of its forerunner, the East Coast Jazz Festival, which started in 1992. Every year, thousands of jazz-loving fans come to Rockville for this exciting winter gathering.
The Mid-Atlantic Jazz Festival is a festival that is produced by the Jazz Academy of Music, and we feature jazz acts, national jazz acts, and we have musicians playing from the area, and we feature high school and middle school kids as well. So it is a jazz education festival. We've been at it 11 years, so we're at the Rockville Hilton and we take over the whole hotel.
Maybe one more song just to right the wrong, but then that's it. I quit.
We've had Branford Marcellus, we've had Ellis Marcellus, we've had Roy Haynes, we have Christian McBride. Pretty much the who's who in jazz.
Know you're out of sight. Got a shapely figure, mama.
We have world-class vendors. Like when I said, we take over the hotel, so you're gonna see some merchandise that you won't see anywhere else. The Jazz Academy of Music, we have programming for school-age kids all year long. Our famed Jam Camp. And it runs for 3 weeks. And we teach kids all the fundamentals of jazz, and we bring in people from all over to play for the kids and to coach them. And I play and I coach. I'm a saxophone player and I'm an educator as well. Every year, we say we're going to keep it the same size, but every year it gets bigger and bigger. And you can look us up on the web at www.midatlanticjazzfestival.org or jazzacademy.org.
Every day, baby, every day I got the blues.
The National Geographic Museum has a must-see exhibit. It celebrates the extraordinary life and work of Dr. Jane Goodall. It's filled with 3D exploration, a holographic experience, and so much more. Goodall is best known for her groundbreaking study of chimps in Tanzania.
Jane Goodall is one of the most well-recognized and famous and accomplished scientists in the world, but she's also the most famous National Geographic explorer in the world as well. And her history here at National Geographic goes back to 1960. That was 60 years ago this year, and we felt like it was a great time to celebrate the life and legacy of such an important figure in our history. The title of the exhibition is Becoming Jane, the Evolution of Dr. Jane Goodall. It really is an experience that takes you through her life, starting with her childhood in England, her very first journey to Africa, the expedition from the 1960s when she arrived in Gombe and started doing her very famous work and this adventure that she had very early in her career, and then ends with an overview of the last 30 years or more of Jane's life, which have really been devoted to advocacy and to education. So in this exhibit, you will see registered projection, you will see a hologram-like projection of Jane by a campfire telling stories of her memories of her early days in Gombe. And we have an incredible immersive 3D theater where you will put on 3D glasses and you'll go into the forest in Gombe with Jane and relive some of her memories about her favorite places. We also have a section of the show that's an interactive called Chimp Chat. So chimpanzees have a very special way of communicating with each other, and we're giving visitors to the exhibit an opportunity to learn how to speak like a chimpanzee.
At the beginning, of course, she would try to connect to chimpanzees. She tried to follow them, tried to record their behaviors and what they're feeding and how they use the habitat. And slowly, as she started discovering and getting new insights into the lives of chimpanzees, she realized how incredibly similar to us they are. I hope that people will be able to see how Jane evolved over the years from a dream to coming to Africa and studying wild chimpanzees to the beauty, first of all, of Gombe. I mean, exploring this amazing virtual reality and using technology to almost feel like in Gombe. I've been working in Gombe for 20 years, and it has been wonderful to so quickly step in, almost being there. And there are moments like this, which I hope they will be able to experience and connect to Jane, connect to Gombe, connect to this beautiful place, to this incredible story.
The String Queens are changing the face of classical music. They're teachers by day, performers by night. 3 local artists making a splash on the national scene with their debut album.
Kendall Isidore, I play violin. Elise Sharp, I play cello.
Dawn Johnson, and I play the viola.
I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I attended Howard University to study biology with a minor in chemistry. And I started playing when I was 8.
I am a native Washingtonian, very proud of that. I graduated from DC Youth Orchestra. I went all the way till I was a senior in high school, and then went on to do music education at Howard, and it's just been a love affair since. I grew up born and raised in Liberty City, Miami, Florida, and from New World School of the Arts, I went on to the Juilliard School. So the way we met was, Dawn had a gig for a trio, and she asked me to be her cellist, and she asked Kendall to be her violinist, and after that performance together, there were conversations afterwards, and we decided, you know what, let's have a day when we meet, because I think we have something special. We wrote down a list of songs that we loved, that we'd be interested in playing, and they were classical and beyond, and then decided on a name. And then the String Queens took center stage. We thought about who we are, we thought about the bold statement of the String Queens, and said, you know what, that's it.
Yeah, it's royalty, it represents even who we want our students to desire to be and feel that they are even today.
Right.
We joke together all the time in rehearsal and on stage when we're talking to our audiences about how our students call themselves, you know, string princesses and string kings or princes, because we want them to walk in this life, not just in our orchestra classrooms, but literally walk each day of their lives. The String Queens seem to also fit our individual personalities and the collective personality of the group.
A lot of our repertoire consists of jazz and pop and R&B, classical music as well. We pretty much play everything under the sun, because one of our taglines as the String Queens is music that inspires people to love, to hope, to feel, to imagine. And so we don't want to limit ourselves or our sound or the type of music that a lot of our fans are exposed to, particularly our students, and particularly people who might not necessarily ever have the opportunity to step into a concert hall to see 3 African American women performing on stringed instruments at Carnegie Hall or the Kennedy Center for that matter.
We've had a great response, to be honest with you. You know, we've played at Carnegie Hall. We've also played at the Anthem here in DC. I mean, and we continue to play weddings. We continue to put on benefit concerts. And I think it's confirmation that we know we're doing the right thing because of that response. Some people say when they hear us, it sounds, even though there's only 3 people, they say it sounds like there are 4 people or 6 people or 10 people at times, because we do try to insert those nuances. We do take pride in our arrangements. For example, I know when I'm thinking of ideas, you know, church and gospel is in my head constantly, and hymns and things like that.
We all come from three very different musical backgrounds. Like Kendall was saying, you know, that church, that gospel inspiration, that's where she came up musically. For me, I'm more, you know, classically based, you know, spending my entire life playing classical concertos and learning classical repertoire. And Elise has had experience performing every type of music. I grew up in the home of my grandfather. He was one of the first African-American conductors on Broadway. And so I have that Broadway influence as well, that jazz influence as well. And I think when you put all of these different experiences together, that's what helps create our arrangements. That's what helps create our unique sound that we have.
My mom is African American and my dad is West Indian, but there is some Latin thing going on. And every time there's just this Latin bass line that comes from inside of me. But I'm also a Motown girl. My mom, I swear she was a supreme, and Diana Ross doesn't know it.
But we can't do it alone. That's why it takes
why it
the
works.
three. Right. We've worked with so many wonderful artists throughout the course of our careers, and we're continuing to do so, which is a blessing. But not long before Aretha Franklin passed away, Elise and I had the wonderful opportunity of performing with her at the BET Honors, which was a life-changing experience that we'll remember forever. Elise won't ever mention this, but she was actually on tour with Whitney Houston at one point. We had the opportunity to perform with, you know, Demi Lovato and Jennifer Hudson, Common, Andra Day, Ariana Grande, Miley Cyrus, with these songs and messages of just hope for our young people. And with that opportunity, Kendall also did many of the arrangements that we performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people right here in Washington, D.C.
We teach middle school orchestra to 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at 3 different middle schools, public schools in D.C. So we are teaching literally what you hear us present to the world. We are teaching in our very own classrooms.
The way we juggle all of this is our own just personal commitment to it. Teaching or playing, that's just not an option. We are going to perform and we are going to teach. And so our mind is made up, we're set on it, and then it becomes a balance.
1, 2, ready.
So we just released our first album a couple of months ago. We are still very much so riding the wave of whatever it feels like to get your first album out there, which so far for us has been wonderful.
And the response to the album has been so wonderful. People are actually supporting the album in beautiful ways by purchasing it, whether it be on iTunes or Spotify or, you know, Amazon or any of these digital outlets.
In 2020, we are going to release another, I will say, couple of albums. So we will be jumping back into the studio in the next month or so to prepare for our next album.
We're living during such turbulent times politically right now, and not just within our country, around the world. And we hear so frequently how much of a healing force music is for so many people. And I believe we want to be at the forefront of that movement, of just healing people around the world through this wonderful, immense power of music that knows no color, it knows no race, it knows no, you know, it has no boundaries. It's endless. It's a universal language, and we want to do everything within our power to bring that message to the world.
Thanks for joining me today. I'm Anquinette Crosby. And until next time, I want everyone to stay healthy, stay safe, and always remember to follow your art.
This program was produced by WHUT, Howard University Television, and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.